Beg to Differ is brought to you by Saltire Energy, who continue to lead the way in the oil industry when it comes to specialist equipment rental. And by Lux Scott, a jet-class luxury vehicle company who are fast changing the face of luxury business and leisure travel in Scotland and beyond. Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to Ali Begg ABTV. This is Beg to Differ. In simple terms, this is a review show. So what I do is I gather a group of Aberdeen fans all together over Zoom and we discuss any given month. This episode is all about February. We discuss the games, the impact of the games, and the editorial stories that are coming out of Pittodrie. So, without further ado, let's introduce to you today's panel. Gentlemen, it's lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for jumping on. So just let me very quickly make the introductions. So over here, admin of Aberdeen Football Club, the Football Monitoring Board on Facebook, and owner of Beat 106 in Scotland. Over here, welcome to the show for the first time, a Bristol City legend, Scott Murray, Kitman, Football Club ambassador, and a bit of a legend up in Fraserburgh as well. Scott, you are more than welcome.
Morning, afternoon, evening.
Down here, Gavin from ABZ Podcast, hugely popular podcast across the Aberdeen fan base. Continue to do the great work, mate. And down here, Rory Britton, trainee football reporter with very popular local site Aberdeen Live. Right, guys, we're going to get straight into it. Gavin, I'm going to come to you first. So the idea tonight is, yes, we're going to look back, but I want to sort of discuss the more editorially interesting stories from the month of February. So obviously, we began the month with a new interim manager. Fast forward a couple of weeks, how do you think he's doing?
I think Barry Robson's carried himself very, very well in this role, to be honest, which doesn't completely surprise me. And he's picked up essential victories, 3 wins out of 5 in his spell so far. And I've heard people try and caveat that we're saying he's beaten some poor teams in that run. But let's be fair, we've been getting beaten by poor teams for the last 18 months on a pretty regular basis. So, given the situation, how dire things were in the last days of Jim Goodwin, those 2 defeats in Edinburgh, of course, Darvel, we don't need to talk about that anymore. I think what the recovery he's put in place in collaboration with Steve Agnew, I think that's important to recognise as well, has been, more very, very impressive. And I think that he's done a good job as far as putting himself at least in the frame for the manager's role going forward.
Okay, Rory, I've got to come to you as a journalist with your ear to the ground. What is your gut feeling amongst your peers about what's going to happen? Because today I've noticed that the local papers, again, are very much touting Mr. Rodriguez as the new manager. He appears to be the bookies' favourite. What's your understanding of it as we speak?
I think essentially it's keep going as they are with Robson and see how they end up. I think he's made too strong a case now not to be considered for the job. And yeah, I think we all saw Dave Cormack after he'd let Goodwin go saying he wanted to get things right. And it's keeping the door open and looking at the options that are out there. They were interested in Wilder and now he's gone off to Watford. They're interested in Rodriguez. And I know there's a lot of fans who are looking for maybe a manager from abroad to come in and show what they can do. But I think the main thing is almost just with the results that Robson's getting at the minute, keep going as they are, hope that keeps going in the right trajectory and maybe see what comes up a little bit further down the line. Because, 3 wins out of 5, you were always going to struggle against this Celtic team, and then you were always going to struggle when you're handicapped with a questionable red card. So he's done a really good job, but I think it still weirdly feels early days, despite it being sort of 5 weeks since he was sacked. But there's a lot to go through, I think, in picking the right guy to take this lot forward.
Scott, I'd like to come to you. I'm actually quite interested to know from your own point of view as a former player, and please forgive my ignorance if I haven't got this right. But did you, during your time as a professional, did you actually ever play under an interim manager?
Probably one or two. I think what you tend to find with managers that come in part time or not the full time, but everyone's trying to impress him. That's the main thing. And I think, you know what, me personally, being an Aberdeen fan, Barry Robson, I think he's from Inverurie. I think he's been at the club since 2018 or whatever. You know what? I'd keep him there at the end of the season. Keep him there at the end of the season. He's made Graham Shinnie the captain, which I think is a massive stroke. And do you know what? Me personally, keep him at the end of the season. And the thing is, people are touting off these foreign names and listen, why go out and spend all this money on people like that? And I think Barry Robson probably knows the young kids at the academy better than anybody. So listen, I think at Bristol City especially, we're probably in the same boat. I think we're relying, since COVID, we're probably relying on kids coming through to make us money. And do you know what? We're selling and making money like that. So I think, me personally, let them have it at the end of the season. Hopefully by then, we've established top six. There you go. So I think it's a no-brainer.
Okay, so this is the potential conundrum that we could find ourselves in, Richard. If Barry does really well to the end of the season, and let's say, speaking hypothetically, we do qualify for Europe, what does the football club do?
I mean, this is the big sticker twist, isn't it, for me, of going, you know, I think everybody wants Barry to be successful. I think everybody is rooting for him. I guess the question is it a step too far for him in terms of his experience of doing the under-18s and stepping up to the big leagues? I mean, I posited a ridiculous but, you know, I guess curious suggestion going, why don't coaches go on loan in the same way that players do and we have players in? Because if we believe it that Barry Robson is managerial talent, maybe not just for now, but maybe for the future, then I don't know, maybe going and managing a League One club or you know, Cove Rangers have turned over a few managers this season. Would that have been an option for him to get more experience in terms of signing players and being in that whole kind of, I don't know. For me, I mean, I'd love to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think with everything that we've gone through over the past 2 years, the one thing that we have been crying out for, particularly when we got Glass, we all kind of thought that maybe Goodwin was right, but was experience. And that's the question for me of going, now is the time that we need to be thinking about the turnover of players in the summer. And Lord knows there's going to be a massive turnover with all the loans that we have and whether players are coming back from loans or whether their contracts are going to be paid off. You know, he does, to his advantage, have, obviously, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, Alan Burrows coming in to help out with that. And the infrastructure is in place, but whether it's got enough time to kind of hit the ground running to do everything that's going to need to be done over the next sort of 3 to 6 months, it's a big risk. And I think if he gets first, the challenge is to get into top six, then it's to get the still very much alive European places. I think if he does that, if he manages to get fourth place, then why not? But you know, as we all know from this season and from the previous season, the train can go off the rails really, really quickly. And you know, this is a perfect time to kind of see who's out there, see who's available, and see what experience they have. I would hate to be Alan Burrows right now, making that decision as essentially your first major decision as a CEO of Aberdeen Football Club. You're effectively, setting out your stall right from the second, third week that you're here.
We'll come to Alan in just a moment. Gavin, I noticed when Richard was making that suggestion about why can't coaches also go out on loan, you appeared to be nodding in agreement.
It's just funny because we mentioned the exact same thing on our podcast.
Yeah.
That went out yesterday, that notion. I think what we can all agree on, though, is that the club's in good hands with Barry Robson right now. There is no need to make any rash decisions, whether that's Ricardo Rodriguez. I'm delighted Chris Wilder took Watford because I think that would have been I consider that a bullet dodged anyway. Let's just say that. yeah, I think they still have to look at things above the manager within the club before you get to him. I think the direct football role still needs to be looked at. Whether Steve Gunn is the right person, head of recruitment. We've got some things very right. With the Miofskis and the Dukes, but there's been a few misses within there as well. I think that's all got to get. We've got to get that fixed first before we get to the manager, in my view. And I would agree with Scott as well. That Robson to the end of the season, I'm on board with that.
Okay,
and we've got a massive game.
We've got a massive game
because he knows the Scottish leagues. He knows the players, and if he wants to bring people in, he knows the league very, very well. You bring in someone from, I don't know, say Spain or whatever, they're not going to have a clue about any place from anywhere around the Scottish place. So I think if you bring in loads of new foreign lads, and I'm not knocking them for a start, but on big wages, the hardest part's then getting rid of them if they don't step up to the plate. So it's a big decision for the club, massive.
Can I chuck an idea, Rory? Can I chuck this idea at you? Bear with me, and I really hope you understand where I'm coming from here. If the club were to appoint a new manager, and let's just say this new manager comes in from foreign shores, could you keep Barry Robson as the interim manager to the end of the season, but yet let and allow the manager to simply observe to the end of the season, then he takes over the reins for the beginning of the new campaign? Is that feasible in professional football?
I'd say that would be. Yeah. I mean, it probably sounds like a good idea in giving someone sort of like a little sample of what they're getting themselves into. Whether a manager would want to sort of come in and almost spectate the way it's going to work for the time being, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like that would almost be like a sort of safe way of going about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's effectively what happened when Derek McInnes came into the club. He was going to observe, and then I think if we'd got top six, he was going to leave Craig Brown to it, and then we got bottom six, so Derek McInnes came in. So I think it's possible. I think, as Rory's kind of mentioned, if you're coming in at this point, do you want to kind of leave things in the hand of someone else? I'm not so sure if any manager would be so keen for that.
Also, would Barry Robson be happy with that? That's the thing.
Well, that's as well.
A big thing. And I think personally, you know what, as I said, it's a tricky situation. I think the club are, and the last 5 games, we've won 3 games. We beat Dundee United on Saturday. You know what, a great performance. And you know what, the things are looking up. And as I said, I remember sitting at home a few weeks ago watching the Arsenal game. I think it was nearly jumping off the suspension bridge here in Bristol. But it's like, you know, honestly, it's so like as I said, for the last couple of months, the things have stepped up brilliantly. And as I said, Barry Robson, he's a breath of fresh air, really. So I think things are going in the right direction, definitely.
Without being Peter pessimist, I think if things continue to carry on being going pretty well, then I think that's all good. As I've said, if the rails start to fall off and the games are lost, we don't make top 6, or we start losing games and we don't make it to Europe, then I think a lot of Don's fans would be sitting there going, well, hang on a second, what's this new, Barry's not doing the business anymore and we've got this new manager, when's he going to step up and take responsibility for it? So it's such a kind of
fine line. You know what?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, right, football's a results based thing. It's as simple as that. And as you said, if he'd won 2 games and lost 3, this chat would be completely different.
Sure.
Completely different. And you know what? And I can't really comment on the games because I don't see enough of the Aberdeen games because I'm down in Bristol. And you guys probably see a lot more how they're playing everything. So you know what? I can only see the results, and I'm happy that we're beating Dundee United in the derby games, and I love all that. So I think, but as you said, you lads, you're watching the games, so I can't actually comment on how we're actually playing.
Yeah. See, the thing is, Scott, I wanted to bring you on to have that professional ex-player mindset to come on this programme. So the questions that I'm bouncing off the guys, I want you to be involved purely from, you're coming at this from an ex-player's point of view. What's it like actually in the dressing room, which we'll get to very shortly. But Gavin, can I come to you? What do you think was the standout performance in the month of February for you?
Oh, the standout performance in February. Goodness, that's a tricky one.
So I guess
we beat Livingston, but that wasn't a pretty game by any means, which you wouldn't expect at home to Livingston. I guess it would be the home win against Motherwell. I thought but even then, I think we were a bit shaky to begin with, and then we grew into the game quite nicely. And by the end, you get a couple of good goals. I mean, I know it didn't. February, was it in February? Wasn't in February.
Yeah,
but we'll carry this over to March.
Being
Dundee at Tannadice, that's always satisfying, especially when you consider what happened in October and the circumstances, and then you throw in Jim Goodwin getting the Dundee United role days beforehand, and the script is written for him to come and produce a defensive masterclass that will be written about in years to come, and for us to get beat 3-4-0, and that didn't happen. So that'll go down as my stand-up performance under Robson so far.
Yeah, I think the Dundee United chat has got to come in, even though this is a February review. It's got to come in because we do have a bit of a gap before we play Hearts next. Rory, for you, I have to admit, at 1-1, when they equalised from their penalty, I thought, we've blown it. But I think Barry Robson being in charge at the moment, he has instilled this newfound confidence in the team, which I think was very much in evidence in the final 15, 20 minutes or so after they equalised. And I'm not sure we would have seen the same result a few months earlier under Jim Goodwin, with the greatest respect. Do you agree or disagree?
I do. I don't think we would have got a win out of it, but I don't think it was just after conceding at 1-1. I think you almost need to talk about the first half from Dundee United, because fair play to them. They've got a very different cause to Aberdeen. They're fighting to stay in the top flight, and they came out sort of all guns blazing, but they were not really getting much of an effort on target or really threatening. But the way they were kind of putting Aberdeen under pressure early on, for Aberdeen to kind of show enough of a sort of, okay, let's hold our nerve, let's battle it back and get out of this situation, that to me was almost more impressive than hanging on at 1-1 and trying to find a way. Because under that sort of circumstance a few months ago, I have a feeling that any team putting that kind of challenge towards goal under Goodwin would have just completely crumbled, and it would have been a lost cause from there. So they are showing a sort of maturity almost, and a sort of good edge to them, I think. Definitely.
Well, Richard, you're sporting the T-shirt, and I have to say, if Duke had scored that goal in the English Premier League, in Spanish La Liga, in Serie A, we would be seeing that on social media every single day for weeks and weeks and weeks, from every single different angle. It would have been animated, it would have been on social media everywhere. But yet, just because he does it in Scotland, it doesn't get that much attention. But my God, what a goal.
Well, firstly, I'm quite glad of that, because the less that everybody outside of Scotland knows about our little secret, then the longer we can keep him for. But
you say that, but Fabrizio Romano, is that how you pronounce it? This dude on Twitter, this transfer dude on Twitter, he's tweeted about him today.
Oh, no, listen, I think, the Miovski's been looked at, Duke's been looked at, and, I don't know how long I'll be selling the T-shirts for, because I don't know how long they'll be around. I think, I think from the outset, enjoy them while we can. I think going back to the Dundee United game for a second, I agree with Rory in terms of, the first half hour was pretty dreadful from an Aberdeen perspective, but it's clear to see the difference that Robson has made in solidifying the players and solidifying the teams. And without wanting to speak ill of the left, the difference between Stewart and the difference between Shinnie is just leaps and bounds. And whilst he may have been playing it up a little bit, the Shinnie Esther at the end, it's just wonderful to see, and the fans love to see it. They love to see the passion. We never got any of that with Stewart, and as I said, it's clear to anybody the work that Robson has put in, not just in terms of the players playing, but just the mentality as well. And I think that that's that's another great positive. And as far as Duke goes, what another amazing piece of skill at the weekend there. Long may it continue.
Scott, I'd like to come to you about some of our loan players. So we were quite busy in January, actually, busier than I thought we were going to be. But we've got a couple of lads who have just really not seen the cold light of day. So Markinde from Blackburn and Patrick Mislovic, who we've seen a glimpse of. Now, these players, they've been brought in, but I've always sort of argued that loan players should come in to fill a gap. And I'm not sure that the position that these kids play in, I always felt that we were sort of okay in those areas. As an on-loan player who knows he's only going to have a certain amount of time to get game time, can it start to get frustrating when you're away from your parent club and you're not playing? How does it affect you?
You know what? The biggest thing is that the winger from Blackburn. Do you know what? There's a big difference playing under 21s football in England than playing first team football in the Scottish Prem. It's the same when the loan players down there. When we send players on loan here, they go to League One, League Two. Sometimes they struggle. They don't actually realise how big a step it is. So I think you know what? I think with the keeper, I was always going to happen. Mikel being injured, but I think do you know what? He needs to bide his time. But as you said, if he's not getting in the team at the moment, I think he's probably going to struggle to the end of the season. I think.
Yeah. So, does the application and training? How much will Barry be looking at that? And you know, what's the process, Scott? Here, you know, do they see enough in training?
I'd like to think the young lads running his socks off, trying to earn himself a deal for next season. That's the whole plan of being on loan, I think. And as I said, the last thing he probably wants to do is go back to Blackburn and play under 21s football, because I think once you get a taste of first team football, the last thing you want to be doing is going back and playing in front of 20 people in a dog and a duck. So I think he'll be. Do you know what? Every training session, you should be working as hard as possible, trying to be the best player there and trying to impress the manager. So that's, and I'd like to think they're all doing that. And you know, and you were chatting about Dundee United again. You know, Duck's goal. The thing that made me happy more than anything was the way that he's closed down the centre half. He's run into the box in a diagonal, and then obviously a nice little bit of skill to finish it off. And I think, as you said, watching that, and then from watching the Darvel game, there was none of that whatsoever. So at least Barry Robson's probably got the work ethic into the team. And you know what? And even Marley Watkins, I'm good mates with Marley Watkins. He's been down here. I played with him about, and you know what? Seeing him score made me so happy, and everyone celebrating together. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, actually, funnily enough, I mentioned that when I did the review show, the togetherness of the players after he scored shows to me how highly he's regarded by his teammates, because they immediately surrounded him, didn't they?
And do you know what? He even when he was at Bristol City, do you know what? He has bad luck with injuries and everything. He's just had a kid. He's just had a kid. So he's probably worrying a little bit about what his situation's going to be next season. Sure. And he's probably working just. And you know what? One thing you can guarantee with Marley, he'll run his socks off. He's a worker. He's a grafter. And as I said, he loves being up in Aberdeen. So I think for me to see him scoring on Saturday, I get goosebumps now just thinking it makes me so proud of him. Honestly, does.
Yeah, it was a great goal. Rory, let's talk about the new Chief Executive Officer who was obviously appointed as well. First and foremost, personally, I'm delighted that he's on board. I certainly championed his cause to come on board. He's got some job to do straight away, but there will obviously be lots and lots of other things that he'll have to do. But in terms of the appointment, a very smart move by the chairman and the board. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think they needed to get someone with, someone they could be confident in to do the job on board, definitely. And he has got a fair old workload in front of him. Gavin's point earlier has made me wonder what is going to be more important for him first, whether it's getting the right people behind the scenes on board or going for the manager situation. But I think to have someone who's done that kind of position for, 15 years with Motherwell, I must have been CEO for the best part of at least 10 of it or something. So to have someone who's familiar with the kind of task at hand, there's a lot going on with Aberdeen's situation specifically, but just to get someone on board who they can be confident in to do the right job and do a good job of it, I think that was a big move and one that was really, really important.
Gavin, how did you guys react to Alan Burrows coming on ABZ?
Surprised. He was name that he was a name that we'd mentioned as almost like a template, like that's the kind of person you'd want. I'm convinced when he left Motherwell, he said he was resigning because of the stress factor.
Yes.
If he thinks coming to Aberdeen's going to be any easier, he's going to find out very quickly that's not the case, Alan. But I mean, he is, like Roy said, he's spent 9 years as chief executive at Motherwell. He'd spent 17 years all in at Motherwell. He is a hugely respected figure within the game. I think we've been championing the cause for a chief executive at Aberdeen since, we restructured the club and went for this brave new world philosophy of director of football and head of recruitment and head coach manager type. I think for Dave Cormack, as much as anything, it is a good thing that we've got someone on the ground in Aberdeen running the club day to day. And it just lets him, takes the pressure off of him. And then the key thing there is that Alan has to get the right people around him. That's what I'm talking about with the director of football and the head of recruitment, especially. And then the manager, kind of repeating myself here again, but I think we're in safe hands with the footballing side of things right now with Barry Robson. I think Alan Burrows definitely knows the size of the task. He is the thing that he was regarded for the most at Motherwell was, harnessing that kind of community spirit within the club. I think that's something that Aberdeen will benefit massively from if he can translate that into the Northeast. So yeah, we're absolutely delighted, and hopefully it's the first step of many towards putting the club on the right track, as Richard would like to say.
Richard, how did the folk react on your Facebook page to the news, and how did you react?
I think again, with no disrespect to a lot of Aberdeen fans, but they probably don't really know what a CEO does, and are aware of Alan Burrows, but don't necessarily know what he was doing at Motherwell. Again, sort of Gavin's use of the word "if," and without wanting to compare Aberdeen Football Club to the current parlous state of Scottish politics. But it is that kind of the next few weeks and months are that sort of great unknown of we don't know what's going to happen next. Isn't it great that, it's all kind of, we can sit here and speculate and talk about it. But I think, the slightly more, chronic curmudgeon would say, that transition from Motherwell to Aberdeen in terms of previous managers hasn't exactly worked out for us if we were going to be a little bit cynical and pessimistic. However, I think everybody's like, oh, Jesus, can't believe he went there.
You went there.
Now we're all thinking that Alan Burrows hired Mark McGee again.
Well, how long have we got left on this Zoom call?
Oh, I'm suddenly being cut off. I genuinely think, I again agree with Gavin. It was what was needed. It was what was needed from the outset. As much as I love, Dave Cormack and wish him all the best of health and stuff like that.
Sure.
He's a good businessman. His football now very much, sort of has been put into question over the past couple of years in terms of his managerial appointments. So to have somebody do that has the experience and what have you, like has been mentioned, it's a brave new world for Aberdeen Football Club. Nobody really likes change. Everybody's apprehensive of change. I'm quite positive about the future, but typically being an Aberdeen fan, it could go either way, and I genuinely hope, and I do believe that good things are going to come over the next few weeks, months, and years. It is that just fear of the unknown at the moment of going, we don't know what's going to happen next. It could be amazing. It could be a horror show. I really hope it's amazing.
Well, believe it or not, we've only got one game left in March, which is in a couple of weeks against Hearts. Scott, I'd like to come to you about this game. Obviously, there are a few points ahead of us. They've got a game in hand as well. I've got to be honest, I was gutted that we've got this little mini break, just as we were sort of building up that momentum. First of all, do you think we can catch them? And do you think we could finish in the top six and maybe even get Europe? How are you feeling about it?
You know what? The last 5 games, I think maybe 3 at home before the end of the season. You know what? They're all winnable games, all 5. I know obviously the last one, Rangers at home, is always a tasty one. But you know what? any home game, Aberdeen should be expecting to win. I think obviously the Old Firm games are a bit different, but I think every time Aberdeen play at home, I'm expecting us to win. So I think I'm looking forward to a lot of running, and then hopefully after the 5 games, we'll be in the top 6 and then push on for that 4th place.
Yeah. Rory, what's your gut feeling about the Hearts game? Going into it in really good form, great confidence. What's your early thoughts on it?
And I think obviously on the back of the Dundee United game as well, the fans are going to be buzzing, and you want to see the 3,000 odd that we took to Tannadice is fantastic. Everyone's on a high. Hopefully we'll get a decent crowd at Pittodrie. I think, as you said, it's a big game for us. I think obviously Hearts and Hibs are above us in the league, and that's the main thing. We need to try and catch them. So it's a massive game, and I don't see why we can't beat them. 100%, definitely.
Rory, what's your thoughts on it? I agree with Scott. I can see this game being a near enough a sellout.
I could as well. I think for this game, there's Aberdeen have got every chance of reaching the top 6. They are in a very good position. They've got plenty of games to go. If this game against Hearts doesn't go well, they are not that far removed from a 5-0, albeit the circumstances were very, very different.
Yeah.
Have beaten them at Pittodrie this season, so there's a lot of this and that. But I think it still needs to be remembered that Hearts are 3rd for a reason. They're obviously in very promising form for them. But I think for Aberdeen's sake, it's more of a just don't lose rather than must win. Just try and get something out of it and make sure that you don't come away with the result that's, too disheartening, that kind of kills that really promising sort of build-up we've had in results recently. But it would be really impressive if they could go and get a win against them in next weekend. I think that would do them a world of good for that belief that aims of top 6 in Europe really can be done.
Gavin, honestly, it's why we all love football. That switch of emotion all the time, every week, that change of emotion. And Saturday's high has just put us all in such a good mood and a positive mood ahead of the Hearts game. I've got to be honest, I'm confident that we can beat Hearts.
I tell you what, Ali, if you'd said to me when we were conceding 6 against Hibs that we'd be in contention for 3rd place a month later, then I'd said you're off your rocker. You know what? I think it's a 6-pointer because if they win, I think 3rd place is theirs for sure. If we win, then it becomes a contest all over again. And earlier in the season, when we weren't in the greatest of form, should I say, we dispatched of Hearts relatively easily. Even Duke with one leg was able to break away from their defence and set up Vinny Bajau. So I've got a lot of confidence. I know the Hearts fans are they're grinding out results right now, but the level of performance isn't the same as it was earlier, and it's kind of feels like it's what we went through with McInnes when we had those European runs, that the squad just kind of runs out of legs towards the end of the season. And so if we can just put pressure on them, hey, let's find out what happens.
Yeah. Richard, you've got less than 2 minutes. The final word is yours. Hearts.
Hearts. I think I agree with everybody else. I feel like I'm being very negative tonight, which is I think these 5 games are must not lose games. I think that's the most important thing for me, given the season that we've had of going. And in terms of Barry Robson's stats and what have you, so long as we don't lose any of these games, that's I clearly want to win all of them, but I think if we can not lose against Hearts and not lose against Rangers, that's a great statement of intent going into what would undoubtedly be top 6 and trying to get that 4th position. I'm less confident. I think 3rd is been and gone. Fair. I wouldn't have a problem with being in the Europa Conference next season as opposed to the Europa League. I can't remember automatic qualifications and where it all of that sort of stuff. But for me, 5 games before the split, if we didn't lose any of them and won the ones at home, that would be pretty good going. Or certainly the St Johnstone away and is it Kilmarnock away as well. I don't think it's unreasonable. I think don't lose them, win the games that we should be winning, and then the 5 games after the split, let's absolutely full systems go.
Brilliant. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been fantastic as always. I appreciate all of your efforts and your thoughts. Take care, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My thanks to all of today's guests. I really hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you did, I'd be very grateful if you would please consider subscribing to Ali Begg ABTV. It doesn't cost anything. All you've got to do is click that little red button, and it just helps us build the channel. We are all done. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon for brand new content here on Ali Begg ABTV. Thanks again. See you soon.